Welcome back, True North Racing fans. Tonight, we would like to welcome Sheldon. We are taking the time to talk to him about his car, what his plans for racing are, what he did differently, and why he thinks he's got what it takes to win. Take the time to follow us on Facebook and Instagram. Don't forget to click subscribe on our YouTube channel. We would also like to thank our sponsors and supporters: Nexen Tire, Vivid Lumens Industries, ADS Racing Shops, Coyote Boltless Beadlocks, Dirty Life Race Wheels, TMR Customs, Clayton Off-Road, Warren Industry, and our newest supporter, NorthRidge 4x4 Canada.
We love you, buddy.
I don't see why you find so funny about that. I mean, I get jobs because it's me. I'm gonna win right because it's me. I mean, come on.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us again tonight, guys. True North Racing, episode 4. And tonight we decided to try and take a different avenue as to I don't know. So it should be a pretty good evening. Yeah. So to start things off, Sheldon, why did you decide to build the class? Why did you decide to build a 4800 car?
Well, there's a few reasons there. It's kind of the way this car came together. It's a pretty long story, but the main one is, you know, co-driving with Alex McNeil 4675 for a couple of races there. Like it was such a great experience and brought me to the realization on how incredibly freaking boring that is. And I had to get to the next class. Like I had to go faster. Like, I mean, it's like we're driving through the desert. I was looking out the window. I'm like, woohoo, we're desert racing. Woo! He's like, are we still on course? No, we're not. Go right. And then you get to the rock trails, and it's like you get out and you got a winch. So you just run the whole rock trail. So you don't get to drive any of the rock trails. You're winching the whole time. So away you are. So then you get back in, you're almost dead. And of course, he doesn't want to stop to get water or things. You got to go. Like, it's just like I didn't want to co-drive in stock class anymore. I mean, he's a pretty good guy. He is one of the heroes of the stock class, but that was my main thing. I said, okay, enough's enough. We got to step her up.
So you had purchased that chassis from someone, didn't you?
Yeah, correct.
And
It was we went we were down in 2011 down at King of the Hammers. This chassis was built as what is now known as the 4400 Unlimited class. Then there was no other classes. That was it. This chassis was built to run King of the Hammers. We went down there in a different chassis. We raced. We came home. The guys decided to build something new, so they built this one. And then life got in the way. Kind of went separate ways. I bought it. It sat in the corner of my shop for I don't know, 5, 6, 7 years. Who's counting?
9.
Hey?
9.
And with my job and my family life, it's I don't have time to work on stuff, right? So it is truly a Legends class chassis, because when we went to build it, the guy that built it, my friend Blaine Richter, went down with the team in what year was that? It's 3 years ago now.
19.
Went down and experienced King of the Hammers, and he came home. I wasn't able to go that year. He came back. He said, we got to put that car together. I had a lot of the parts and pieces sitting there. He said, you got to bring this over. If you don't, he'd built a couple trail rigs before with 6-liter Toyotas and stuff. He said, if you don't bring that car over, I'm going to bring another rusty Toyota into my shop, and I'm going to work on that. So as soon as he got done his project he was on, we brought it over. 8 months later, it was on a trailer heading to the desert to go test it out. So, you know, Blaine put this thing together with what we had, and did a really good job. We got some good seat time in it. And we had to cut out quite a bit of the tubing because rules had changed since the chassis was originally built, because the unlimited class has gotten so crazy, right? Like the whole race is just crazy now. So
yeah, and they made the big changes to the cage tech there in 2015, I think it was, as well, which was a lot stricter on the gusseting and sizing of tubing and stuff too. So
yeah, so we cut a bunch of the old stuff out and had to change a bunch of stuff. And you know, Blaine did an awesome job getting it going, and we got it down there. We had a couple little issues here and there, but that's what building a race car is all about.
Couple minor issues and one big issue.
Yeah, it's a work in progress. I'm happy with it. It's
Well, I mean, it shows a lot of potential. Like even just the year you brought it down and you basically wheeled it, it seemed to work absolutely great on a lot of the obstacles. It did the rocks absolutely awesome. From what we've seen on Tail Creek, you know, it handles the course quite well too. You know, you take it out Tail Creek and you find the weak spots on it. And same thing I'm doing with the Razor is you find the weak spots on it and try and build on that and make it better. But I guess one of the follow-up questions to that first question is what if a 4600 car beat you, and would you express disappointment, anger, or rage? And that was a follow-up from Joey, because he really wanted to know, you know, if you built this car, put all this time and money into it, and then watched Alex just blow past you like you were standing still, you know?
Well, I mean, that can happen in this kind of racing, right? I mean, Alex has a lot of horsepower. He can go, but I also passed him in the last race that we did. So, I mean, yeah, can he blow past me? Yeah. Can I blow past Khaleesi? I did. It was broken. That's what happens in this kind of racing, right? I mean, that's a stomping car. It happens. I mean, you're going to go endurance off-road racing. Stuff happens. Alex has a super cool stock class car. That thing has proven itself over and over again. And this one has proven itself. It's finished a race. It did really good in its second race for a first car, and that's racing.
Just to clarify though, Alex did beat you at the last race.
He did more laps. Yes, he did finish the race, but I will also clarify that he wasn't really racing anyone. He just goes out and drives and finishes and gets a trophy every time.
hey, I got third overall for finishing. So yeah.
There's a story. There is a story behind why I didn't finish.
Well, yeah, because we sat there and knew you didn't have a welder, and we were like, oh, you ripped the upper link arm off, you're done. And you're like, well, where's Chuck? And then you decided to drive it over and go get it welded.
So the one change that I made to the car at the Tail Creek race was the rear mount, the rear links. I was hammering out the rubber mounts, the rubber bushings in my Johnny joints. They couldn't handle it. Every race I had to change them out. So I got these awesome lifetime Heims from TMR Industries, and we put those in there. And I found a weak link in our old school chassis that I have to rectify now. It basically, the way the car is set up, it ripped the mounts off the chassis because I swapped to an actual joint that doesn't have any give. I am convinced that these things are so badass, they will not break. I have to make my car handle it. So that's the next step, is to you always find the weak links, right? So I made it 10 out of 12 laps, and basically the chassis fell apart because it wasn't built right. We're going to fix that, and we're going to come back and do it again.
But it's also, I mean, like we've talked about in previous videos, it's also why you've putting so much time and effort in now before we take it down to California to try and race King of the Hammers. Is that figuring out the weak links before you get it out onto the lake bed, and getting that seat time. So I mean, one good thing is you answered. Jay, have you figured out your shit on what's going on there? Like I have seen, like you just taking video of your leg and those shitty curtains behind you.
I'm trying not to get the Brokeback Mountain curtains thing, so I gotta move, boys.
I'm getting motion
4,200
sickness
square
just
foot house.
watching your
Find
screen.
somewhere else to sit.
I don't know where to go.
God.
There's cowboy stuff.
Yeah, there's cowboy stuff everywhere. You're in the wrong house, eh? So, I mean, one thing you did talk about, Sheldon, was what's different about your chassis. You're not building a 4,800 chassis. You purchased a original 4,400 chassis from years ago, and you've actually, so it is a true Legends car. So I think that's actually a pretty cool concept. You know, I guess to follow up on, you know, continuing with our questions that we prepared was, you know, what makes you think your car can win? What makes you think you could win in that car?
It's all about the race prep, the design and build of it. I mean, Blaine's put a lot of time into making sure everything, all the connectors are good, you know, electrically, fuel wise, everything is connected good. And it basically, it comes down to just keeping it together. It's got a pretty good driver. I mean, he's probably the best driver in the class.
I mean, that's a pretty bold statement to sit there and throw out there.
Yeah,
So, I
I'll
mean,
throw it out there all day long because nobody's giving me a car to prove me wrong. I got to do it in this one.
yeah. So, I mean, as a driver, then, what makes you think you can? What do you have that no one else has to finish that race?
I just I'm cool that way.
You're cool that way. Well, I can tell you one thing is what we saw at our last race that we were at is Tail Creek. Is when those guys came out of the gate, they came out of the gate for broke. And 3 laps into the race, like 50% of them were parked on the sidelines. And you had one guy basically just doing laps with 3 tires, and all he was trying to do was just hold the rest of the car together. You had another guy in 3-wheel drive, and you had actually one functioning car in the entire race. So, I mean, I know for me, when I was racing in the previous race, I was like, it was everything I had to sit there and try and like keep myself composed to like, okay, I don't need to beat that guy these next 5 laps. I need to beat him in the last 3, but I need the car to last that long.
And how many times do we see that at you know, King of the Hammers? You know, we'll pass through with Alex in our stock class the first 15, 20 miles of lap 1. There's 4,100 cars broke down everywhere. They litter the course. And we go around and then we come back, we're doing lap 2 and they're still there. And they're you know, they're giving us an applause because we're still going, and they destroyed their stuff in the first 20 miles. It's you got to keep a cool head to it. Like you can't just hop in it and go. It's like I work in the north, I drive in the snow, I drive in the mud, I drive expensive trucks, and you got to keep the stuff going. Like there's a difference between, you know, just getting in that race car and just going as hard as you can and driving it so you can actually get to where you're going. That's the biggest part.
Well, you and Alex mentioned for years about just 4,800 cars, 4,500 cars broken on the side of the trail. And I'm like, these guys got to be joking about how many cars are broken until I was actually there in 2020. And I started in 79th, so I didn't do well in qualifying. And the amount of cars broken in the first 5 to 6 miles was absolutely outstanding.
It's brutal. It really is.
Well, and it's tough too because like, and admittedly, like, so the first year we raced, I drove it a lot harder than I drive right now, and we made it. We did like 52 miles the first year, but I'm pretty sure the way I drove it was definitely attributing to the fact that I broke the front axle in half at mile 52. So like there's that weird balance that you got to find where you drive hard enough for what the car can do, but don't overdrive the car. And it's different too, because like for me, I think Sheldon probably is going to be a little more aggressive driver than I am, and he's got the machine that can probably handle it better because he like if he was to try and drive the ZJ, maybe, you know, he might actually overdrive it a little bit, but he's got a car now that he's getting prepared for, and he's building it so to suit him. So I think that's the important thing to think about is you gotta match your own abilities and comfort level to the abilities of the car. And if you can do that, then that's the best chance you can get. So, and I mean, you can overdrive a 4,800 car. Like we said, we see them broken all over the place. People don't know. They either don't do their prep or they just drive it way, way, way harder than it should be, thinking that these things are indestructible. And I mean, they're tough, but like, they're not bulletproof. Right. So I think that's the key, is just find that edge where you're driving within the ability of the car, but you're driving hard enough to, you know, to put some good times down, and obviously not, you know, not put yourself on your lid and all that good stuff. So
Yeah, that's exactly it, Alex.
When Lyndon and I were in the first year, I mean, we made it 17, 18 miles, and then we rolled the car, and we became one of the pedestrians sitting on the side of the road waving at everybody. The second year, we were able to sit there and we were able to keep the right mindset in going through it. And we had 5 cars pass us. So we lost 5 spots. And by the time we crossed the start finish line to complete lap 1, we had gained 25 spots. So those 5 cars that passed us meant nothing because of the carnage left on the course that we were able to pass. And I mean, by the time we broke, it was the same thing. It was, you know, we took a bad line and it just knocked the drive shaft out, and that was it. But
that's fine.
I mean, getting back to Sheldon's car here, what's something you think your car has that other cars don't?
Character. It's got a lot of love. There's
Character.
Yeah. Well, look at how goofy it looks, because that's question 8. It's like, why does your car look so goofy?
well, it's kind of like the owner and their pet, right? I mean, does the owner look like the pet? I mean, we can go there. I think it actually looks kind of cool. One of the other questions is, what's the next mod? So we are cutting down the front end. It's got that big, the shock hoop down the front. Those aren't required. We don't need those. We've gone to a shorter shock. Like I said, this is an older chassis. It was made to run coil carriers and bypasses. We can't run that, obviously, in the class that we're in. So we are going to be chopping that down because visibility in the front's not very good. One of the other questions, you know, what does this car have that others don't? Has a front radiator. We wanted to keep the radiator as close to the engine as possible, just for simplicity. I mean, they engineered a truck engine to work that way. We wanted to keep it that way. It's not going to work so good in the muddy situation. So we have some ideas to keep the mud out of the rad, but we're running a front rad. We're going to slope it down a little bit more, cut those hoops down so I can see a little bit better. And there's just certain things, a couple things that are a little bit different than what you see for some of these cars, and we think it might be an advantage. Well, I guess we'll find out if it is or if it isn't.
I mean,
simplicity will always work in your favor. That's what I find with some of this. It's like the more simple you can keep it, the better.
Thank you for all your support. Keep watching for part 2 and part 3. We will have a draw at some point during our bantering for a t-shirt, a hat, and some True North Racing stickers. Talk soon.